Welcome to the Round 6 Podcast, a weekly roundtable discussion featuring a variety of automotive subjects, interviews, special guests, and stories, hosted by the Round 6 Gearheads, Brian Stupsky, Brad King, Alex Welsh, and Eric Hibbs. On episode 13, the Gearheads welcome automotive artist Chris Dunlop, also known as Pinstripe Chris. I just like the fact that somewhere out there there's a dog or a cat with a SAG card. That makes my day.
Yeah, that's one rich dog.
Well, it depends on what it's in. If it's in like a Nicolas Cage movie, it's a write-off every year.
I did a job. I got that.
If you did a Nicolas Cage movie with a soundtrack by Nickelback, dude, what if you made motion picture of Nicholas Nickleby starring Nicolas Cage, soundtrack by Nickelback?
What you've described there sounds like a straight-to-VHS film.
This will be one of those art theater things, down in a college town somewhere.
Yeah, midnight movie.
Yeah,
but it was produced by Jack Nicholson, see, so there's that.
Oh, it gets better.
Wow.
It made 10 cents.
There you go.
Brad, or Brian's two dads went to see it.
Hey, you leave them out of it.
You leave them out of it.
I'm trying to get mileage out of that. That was funny as shit.
Those guys are classy.
Yeah.
They're going dressed as the Wicker Man and
with their
John Travolta from Face Off. It's going to be awesome.
Mm. Yeah.
I've got nothing after that. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Brian.
I'm Brad.
I'm Alex.
I'm Eric.
And with us tonight, we have a very special guest, super talented guy. You may know him from his recent remake of the all-nude musical Hair on Broadway. Mr. Chris Dunlop, also known as Pinstripe Chris.
Hello. Wow. That was a fine introduction.
I do my best. I didn't want to, be remiss in mentioning your fantastic. I don't want to say a big part in that because
I mean, director is just I'm just director.
He's behind the camera instead of in front. There you go.
Yeah, I'm shy.
So many hair jokes for that. What part did you play? Hey. It's kind of a permanent role.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just riding the wave of your popularity. I've got nothing. Moving right along, man. I feel like I just talked to you, sir. And,
it's weird because we did just talk.
We did. Also, it wasn't just a dream. This is awesome.
No, I was there. Well, maybe it was a dream. I don't know.
and he's just as bored as you thought he was there, Brian.
Hey, wait. Oh, that hurts.
Man.
You sent such a nice e-card. So, so what's happening, man? How are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. The weather was really good today. It's usually not bad here anyway, so I'm good. I had a nice, fluffy, easy day, which made up for yesterday, so this is a really, really nice way to end today, I think.
Fantastic.
We'll fix that.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see if we can ruin that for you. It'll work out great.
It's not over yet, man.
It's a challenge. I see. I get it.
Give us a chance.
All right. Yeah, we've got time.
Earlier you mentioned something being a dream. Later on, you're just going to wake up in a cold sweat screaming all of our names. It'll be great.
I'll be wishing it was a dream. And maybe it will be. I don't know. Write about it on my Tumblr page.
Oh, jeez. That stuff, you got to be logged into View Years, though.
Do people even Tumblr anymore? Is that a thing?
I don't. You know what? Now I need to find out. And that's really sad that
Somebody Google it.
That's what you just planted.
Probably an indication of our age.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have said anything.
Get ready to be on a watch list.
Our age. How old are you, man?
I'm 31.
Our age.
You may be, at this point, you hold the record now. I think you are the youngest guest we have had.
Yep.
Sweet. Hopefully I keep that record forever.
Outstanding. Yeah, and if you never age, well, then we'll just have to think that you're a vampire, and that's going to be weird.
You know what? Somebody was asking me the other day how old I was, and I started to say 20-something, but I knew that was a lie. I just really wanted to say 25, and I've been saying 25 for like 6 years.
Well, everybody in this group lies too, so you're not any different.
The thing is, your important birthdays, 16 because you get your license, and 21 because you get to drink or gamble or whatever. And after that, you're so looking forward to those birthdays, and then nobody keeps track. It's like, I'm 40 something. I've got to actually think. I have a birthday this year. I was born in 71. It's about that. Yeah. Anyway.
I always just stick with, like, the first age that comes to mind is kind of where I figure I'm still at mentally. So like, how old are you?
13?
7? I don't know.
That makes sense. Just go with the first number. Yeah, I don't see why not. I don't know why people just don't introduce themselves with what year they were born. Let somebody else do the math.
That's a great idea. Or if you're really nerdy, you could break it down. It's like, I was born on star date 1.7.419.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I was supplemental.
Which captain? Which captain were you born?
Which captain? Yeah.
It screws everything all up.
There was a Mars retrograde happening. It was a Chinese rooster year, but a dogtail month. Gosh, there's just so much going on in 86. And people say, oh, man, you were born in 86. I'm like, yeah, the year of the Challenger got destroyed in Chernobyl. Great times.
Wow, so that's pretty great, though. So in a year of destruction, you came out. So you know,
yes, me and several others.
That's a great intro, actually.
Does your wife know?
She's born the same year.
Well, no, Brian was talking about coming out, so.
Hey. Well, there's no more wife, so no problem.
You're out. It's easy.
This turns dark.
Yeah, so quick.
And here I was just gonna, I was gonna give Chris a nice nickname. I figured if you're born in the year of destruction like that, we're just gonna refer to you as Zool.
Zool? Zool. That makes sense. I guess for your Spanish or Italian audience, they might just think you're saying azul, which is just blue. That's kind of cool too. I dig that.
Yeah.
Little paint joke for.
It's like, these guys are deep. One day someone will be sitting there. It'll be their job to try to figure out what the hell was going on in this podcast. They'll be like, oh, it was so deep on so many levels.
Yeah, wow, this is just deep. A few minutes in, and people are breaking out decoder rings. It's amazing.
No, it's really shallow. That's all we do.
Oh my god, yeah. I don't think this really falls anywhere into that total depth thing. It's like, yeah, our podcast is not like the Stanley Kubrick film of media.
So it's not watched just for art. There's no story. You just go, huh? I've seen it. Now I can tell people I've seen it. Great.
Yes, yeah. We want to be that pretentious where people just drop our names. Like, have you ever read it? I read the first paragraph. It was great.
Yes.
It was the
I
best
own
of
it.
times.
It was the extent of our research. We did the first paragraph, and we're gonna make a movie out of it.
That's where all good ideas start from. Some really, really crappy paragraph, and then somebody else with the terrible idea goes, oh my gosh, that paragraph, we can make a movie.
Based on a true story.
Have you seen a movie lately? It's kind of how they seem.
They're terrible. What story is this based on? Oh, it's at the mall, and there's a little kid running into the Spencer's gift shop. Oh my god, do they still have Spencer's? Okay, wait, you're young. There used to be a store called Spencer's Gifts.
Come on, man. They still have Spencer's. It's all good. Actually, it's different now than it was. I'll give you that. It's basically like Hot Topic 2, the sequel. But it's still around.
Topic.
A topic so hot it needed a sequel. Done.
Yeah. Pop culture clothes for kids that want to be different like everyone else.
Yeah. the fake punk rocker that wants to buy fake dog poop.
It's all there.
To look real.
Well, if you just don't want to buy it on Amazon.
Nothing is quite as legit as seeing a 9-year-old walking around with a Motley Crue,
Oh, Jesus.
Shout at the Devil tour shirt. You're like, oh, you were there.
I recognize you.
Front row.
I knew your mom.
along with the rest of the front row.
Swiping your dad.
I don't think anyone's going to forget your mom.
You don't know how many times I've heard that from people who went to Motley Crue show.
That's funny.
Moving along. So, man, in just going along with this whole age thing, in your 31 years, man, you've packed a lot of living in.
I have tried.
And I mean, in a good way, not no weird, like Mick Mars kind of, you know.
Yeah, not like I went backpacking and was like, I've got to write a book.
Oh, but you could. Why don't
I
you?
could, but, I'm not trying to give people life advice at, 25. Like, there's some life advice people that you can hire for $5,000 a day that are like 22 years old, and you're like, really? What do you have to offer me at 22 years old? Come on now. It's ridiculous.
I got socks older than you.
A fresh, shallow perspective.
Yeah. Well, fresh perspective, but $5,000 a day? I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's not life coaching. No.
No, it's not.
I've seen a lot of shit, and I wouldn't even try to life coach somebody for $5,000 a day. I mean, $5 a day?
$5,000, I'd try.
Yeah, I mean, that's like
a day.
$5 a day. That's like vending machine advice. You could just, you might get something cool out of there, or the Kit Kat might get stuck. You have no idea.
See, speaking of going deep, there it is. There's the metaphor for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
It's going to be Chris Dunlop on the show, doling out Kit Kat advice.
Yeah. Somebody had to. I'm just glad it came from me.
That's awesome.
So, man, okay, obviously, I'm sure a lot of people are going to tune and know who you are, and rather than go over the usual stuff that you always have to, it's like, where were you born? What did you do? What made you get into art? Let's dive into the guts of stuff, man. Like, how do you go from basically a professional career that starts off on the East Coast, restoring vintage and exotic cars, and getting into the art thing? I mean, was it something you'd always wanted to do, or is it something you kind of just eased or fell into?
It's kind of a mix of a lot of things. I've always done artwork. I've been drawing cars probably since elementary or middle school, and always enjoyed doing artwork, more as a hobby, more as for fun. And I always liked the idea of doing it for a living. And then there were certain parts when I was going through my career where I was just doing airbrushing or just doing pinstriping, and that was pretty artistically freeing for me long before I was doing illustration. But to kind of go straight from one into the other was really, really risky to do. But I always knew that if somehow I didn't make it or whatever reason, I could always go back to a body shop. That's a job that's always there. And pretty much, the doors revolve. You can always get into a body shop if you need to, I think. So I wasn't too worried about taking the risk of doing it. The bigger risk was moving to California because, like you mentioned, we're from Maryland. And I basically finished up a big job, and we took all the money, which wasn't very much. I say all, making it sound like it was a lot. It wasn't very much. And it was all that we had, both me and my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time. And we bought one-way plane tickets and flew to California without jobs, without a car, without a place to live. We just took with us what we could fit in backpacks, and we flew here. Just because that was the only way to kind of get going. It's so easy once you get like a big chunk of money or you get paid good on a job or your shop has a good month. Once you have money, that's when all the tires on your cars go flat, the roof comes flying off your house, your basement fills with water. The universe finds a way to just siphon that money right out of your pocket, no matter how hard you work for it. So I thought, let's just take this as the opportunity. It's not even enough, but let's just get the hell out of here and start in the next chapter, because we both knew that we didn't really feel like we were living up to our potential where we were doing what we were doing. So the change of scenery was necessary for both of us in our respective ideas of what we wanted to do, and coming to Southern California made sense. The way we did it was really, really risky because we didn't know anybody here, and we still don't know many people here. And like I said, we didn't have a place to live. We found people to roommate with on our layover, and we ended up staying with them for a few months, which is really cool. And then we just, when we got here, we had a rental car for a week, and then within that week, I bought us an old classic Volkswagen Bug because they're easy to get here, and pretty much anything keeps them running, so they're cheap. And we both found jobs within a couple of days because we knew we needed to. So when you put yourself in the situation of what do I need to do to succeed and get on my feet, you will find a way to do it. And if you're not, you're just being lazy.
Oh, that's so well
exactly.
said.
Yeah, I mean,
Dude, you said that perfectly.
Thank you.
we talked earlier about life
life
coaching. There you go.
That's right.
Dude, you just doled out. That wasn't the Kit Kat bar of life coaching. That was
Do we-
Oh, that was.
was
Do we
Fifth Avenue.
each
Well
owe you
said,
$5,000, or can we just like $5,000 you collectively?
Yes, absolutely.
But no, man, I give you a ton of credit because you did that one thing that takes some people a lifetime to figure out. There's a huge difference between sitting there and saying, I want to do this, or I am in a position now where I have to do this. I have no choice.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a big difference. And you know what seems so easy for people, especially now with social media, it's so easy to want to do something that you feel like you can't do. What's hard is for people to actually do it. In practice, it's not really that hard if you're comfortable with giving up everything that you know. And for me, that was pretty easy because I felt like in order for our lives to actually move forward, in order to be able to see something and do something that you've never done before, nothing you've ever done previously is going to prepare you for it anyways. So just forget what you think you know and start over somewhere else. But start over with the idea of moving forward with what you want to do in a background like I had in a body shop where I could easily get a job as a helper in a shop, which is exactly what I did, just to kind of get me on my feet. And that worked while I was working at night on artwork eventually, just kind of transitioning. And to give anybody listening a scope of the kind of money that we had when we moved here, it was $1,200. That's how much money we had in our bank account.
Wow.
That's a ballsy move.
I'm impressed, man. I'm kind of blown away. So what was the first job you got? What did she do? What did you do? I mean, you found jobs. What did you guys find?
I found a job at a hot rod shop in Huntington Beach, which is the area that we moved to. The shop already had two main guys that were painters and body guys and the owner. So it was a small shop, but they needed another person in just to kind of help around. So I was basically the helper. I went from somebody that was helping own and operate a shop working on exotics to back to just block sanding and sweeping floors. And I was perfectly okay to do that, knowing that I was starting in the place that I wanted to be, just the area. So I was willing to kind of go, you know what, it's okay for me to step backwards because I was in the place that I wanted to be, not physically the shop, but the area. And I knew it was a stepping stone. And my wife started working at Disneyland.
Man,
Cool.
you made it happen. That's dude, my hat's off to you. That's quite impressive.
You did something that a lot of us have always dreamed about wanting to do, but never had the guts to do it. That took a lot of guts.
You just got to do it. And everybody's situation's a little bit different. And there's reasons that things get more complicated. And we knew that if we were going to kind of take the jump and move, it would have to be before we had kids. We don't currently have kids, but we knew that if we had kids, it would certainly make doing something like that really, really challenging. Yeah. And so everybody's life situation is different. And it seems like most people get to a point where they feel like they're past the opportunity to be able to do something risky. In some cases, that's true, but it depends on what you're trying to do. There's a lot that you can do online these days that require you to change your life in the way that we did. But for what we wanted to do, we needed to be somewhere else entirely. We needed to separate ourselves from everybody we knew.
That's seriously impressive because at a young age to be able to just pick up and say, there's something better, and just go completely somewhere where you don't know where you're going without really a significant plan. That takes a lot of fortitude, and I'll say most people can't do that.
Nope.
They're too tied down to what they
too
don't
regimented.
have.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't fault people for that. I understand
Right.
what that's like. I felt like I had a good thing going where we were, and my wife was doing okay with what she was doing. But the grass always seems greener, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But depending on the kind of industry that you're trying to play in, there's a really big reality to the geography of that. There's only a few places in the United States that are really prominent in the entertainment industry or the writing industry or automotive industry, for example. So for something like what I want to do, it makes sense to transplant from where I was to an area that has a car culture year round. Where I was, of course, there was a car culture, but it wasn't year round. And it's different everywhere. Every state kind of has their own way of hot rodding and custom cars and exotics. And California, at least here, is the area that I'm in, is just a little bit more universal. I knew that we could probably do more just by being here.
I think you nailed it too, because the California car culture seems to be the car culture that every other car culture is based on, if that makes sense. It's kind of weird. It's like the prototypical car culture.
I can see that, even though there's plenty of areas that, let's say, quote unquote, we don't give a damn how they do on the West Coast. I don't know. Right. It seems like a lot of people give a damn, I'll say. You might say they don't, but whatever.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, East Coast is far different than West Coast.
Definitely.
So, to me, your move was kind of a no-brainer, especially at the time you did it. Again, like you said,
the timing worked out good.
Yeah, I mean, today it wouldn't matter if you lived in Anchorage, where, hey, what's your car culture? It's me and Zeb. And
snowmobiles.
Hey, Chris, when you came out here, so like wintertime, you were used to everything being in garages. It's pretty much done until it, warms up outside.
Yeah.
Were you a little shocked to see guys in roadsters running around in January out here compared to what was like back there?
No, I wasn't shocked, I would say. And we actually moved like January 2nd of the year that we did. So when it was snowing when we got on the plane, and it was 60, 65 when we got off the plane. So I thought that was a really good sign when we got here. So no, everything about the car culture being year-round that we noticed right away was more inspiring than shocking. I was aware of it, of course, but it wasn't surprising. It was just it was a nice feeling of, this does feel like the right place, because people are doing this all the time. People are riding in roadsters, like you said, and motorcycles, and exotics and hot rods every day on the streets that we live in. And that might seem like it makes it less special because it's common, but it's not. I never get tired of it.
Man, so the big question in the room, how do you convince a girl on a shoestring to pack up and leave home?
We're going to be broke and maybe homeless for a while, but you're going to have to trust me.
Unless you guys watched a Hallmark movie where they did the same thing.
I would love to hear about that Hallmark movie. For any movie producers listening, I'm willing to star in my movie where I relive our story. No, it's basically what you already said. It came down to trust. I have always talked about California for the entire time that me and my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, I'd always talked about moving to California. And I've lived in other parts of the United States as well, so I had a sense of what I liked and didn't like. And California always seemed like the best end result for the type of thing that I wanted to do. So my wife wasn't surprised at all when I said, we should really consider this. And we considered it a few times, and then ultimately we got to a point where we're both pretty just fed up with living in Maryland and kind of the situation we're in, and almost like a what do we have left to lose type of thing, even though we're running a good shop and having fun doing what we're doing. But I think when we left California, we were 25, or left Maryland, I should say. We were 25 when we moved here. So to be working at the shop at 25 and going, okay, now is this exactly what things are going to be like for the next 20 or 30 years? Am I going to just keep doing this? And that seemed really misplaced to me. Like to have figured out that we were going to be in the shop forever at 25 seemed too early to commit to something.
Yeah.
Right on.
So what was the next step? You were at a hot rod shop. What was your next jump from there?
The next jump from there is probably a really common story amongst other people that have worked in hot rod shops around SEMA. So the first year that I worked there, towards the end of working there, we did a build with Magnaflow and Chip Foose. And the build was fun, but anybody that's ever worked on SEMA stuff knows that for 2 or 4 weeks you get no sleep and you just live on coffee. Fortunately, I lived really, really, really close to the shop, maybe just a couple of blocks away. So it was really simple for me to get back and forth to the shop. So late nights, everyone's stressed and everybody's wacky and extra aggressive, I guess. But in any case, we finished that build for SEMA. The shop people go to SEMA. I wasn't invited, I guess, because I was I was just the regular help guy. I'm not
Of course,
the
you're just a
Cinderella.
lowly grunt. Yeah, why should
Yeah.
you be there, right?
Yeah. I just an added expense, I guess, as far as they're concerned. So
It's the marketing department that made the car happen. So, right?
clearly, they deserve the credit. I agree. So so they go to SEMA. They come back a week later. The other three people that work at the shop, and the owner isn't able to pay us right away for the time that we spent. And of course, typical story, guy says, I'll pay you for your overtime. I'll pay you for all the time that you spend. And everyone's keeping very good track of their hours. And short version being that, months went by and he hadn't paid me. And I told him, when they got back, I said, listen, I'll come back to work when we're square, but I've been screwed over enough times because I've worked in enough car shops to know what this basically means. So I'm not going to let you just keep stacking what you owe me on top of what you owe me. I'll come back when we get square. And to this day, he's never paid me back. And I don't care. I've worked at so many shops that I haven't been paid for time. It's not even a special story. There's a billion people out there that have the same story. The best part is that was my opportunity to hang out at home and do nothing but what I thought I should do with my time. I thought, okay, well, if I'm doing artwork at night and now I'm at home, hopefully waiting to get paid by the shop, I need to do something with my time. I'm not just going to sit at home and play video games. As much as I like doing that, I thought, this is a great opportunity to just do some artwork on purpose. I've got waking hours to do it. Maybe I'll be better if I'm not doing it on less sleep. So as a result of that SEMA situation, I started just doing more artwork at home, which gave me the flexibility to start sharing it more on Facebook and Instagram because I could be on my phone essentially during the day like I couldn't when I was at the shop. So it was a really bizarre transition of not getting paid from one shop to stay at home, to start doing artwork, to start getting paid doing that. It's like, that doesn't even make sense really, I don't think, to be like, I'm going to quit my job and just go home and start drawing cars. That seems like the right thing to do.
Well, no, I think right now, Brian and I are going, wow, he was actually at home doing artwork and getting paid for it. So I'm kind of impressed.
Well,
It's like,
make no
what's the
mistake,
secret, man? I did a lot of artwork I never got paid for.
Well, and that's the thing. You take the ones that you didn't get paid for, but I mean, I'm just nodding my head going, I remember that key moment in my life when I went, screw this. I'm just going to go do this on my own, and then it's up to me whether I get paid or not.
Agreed. And don't get me wrong, it's not like the first couple of years of stuff I did was not making me rich, that's for sure.
It never is.
No, and I think younger people trying to come into this industry miss that point so hard. You have to pay your dues. You have to look for opportunities and understand that opportunities don't always come with like this real actual monetary price tag. Sometimes an opportunity is to work on this really cool build with this big name, or at least in the early days to have something in a magazine, or it's just a part of something special. Not everything comes down to money. When you're running a business, it comes down to money. But when you're looking for opportunities as a startup person trying to get your name out there, you need to say yes to a lot more things than no.
Oh yeah,
Well
and
said.
you nailed it right there. If you treat it like a startup, man, if some young kids listening to this, they're going to get the greatest ever advice here. I mean, they've got your guts for going out and doing what you did, combined with your knowledge and experience and my blatant stupidity and ignorance going into the way I did. And you've got a point though. If you treat it like a startup, and a lot of artists don't have that that business sense to go and do it, but you go at this thing and say, okay, not every job is going to be high paying. It's not going to put an in-ground pool in a backyard that I don't even have at this point. Something like that, where if you go, okay, but it's going to give me that hands-on experience.
Right.
I'm going to network my butt off. It's going to put my name in front of people that would be almost impossible to do any other way. So what is that worth to me? Not dollars-wise. What is that worth to me opportunity-wise moving forward?
Right. Exactly. Not everything is going to earn you all the money. Like I said, sometimes opportunities are just valuable on their own. And in terms of something like artwork, the way I figured that I could make up for some of the stuff that wasn't going to pay great, and it's not like I was charging very much in the beginning anyways. I was just happy to take some stuff on and pay some bills early on. The way that I made up for it was by speed and volume. Generally, I can work really, really quick, and part of that is because I spent 10 years prior working in body shops. Everything was about efficiency, as close to perfection as possible. So the idea
does wonders for you.
It'll keep you motivated, yeah. So having that mindset going into artwork, being really, really aware of time and quality and how they're sliding scale that can slide together, meant that that I could try to capitalize on the ability to be fast if I could be fast.
So does that mean that you'd be willing to do a painting of my car just for the exposure? Because the exposure would be really good.
Oh, you see,
put your name
gonna
on
work
it.
out.
12 years ago he would have. See?
Yeah, there may have been a time where that might have been okay. At
I
this
can't believe
point,
people still ask for that.
I know I feel that way as well. When people message me on Instagram or Facebook or the email and they're calling and be like, "This might be really good exposure for you," and sometimes that's true. I'll hear somebody out, but more often than not, I've got 4 or 5 times the following that the person trying to get me exposure even has. So I'm not
That's the
really
point
sure
I was going to make.
how that benefits me. It might be different people, but I don't know if that benefits me either.
Well, yeah, and then you've got to do that research where you've got to look at who is in their core group of followers. Because sometimes it's great. A guy might come to you and you say, okay, you've got 5,000 followers. Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket. But he may have, of those 5,000 people, 3,000 of those may be really valuable moving forward.
That's true. Yeah.
And that's
And they're all in the
gig.
next tax bracket, see? So they all have money. That's the biggie.
That's true. Yeah.
It's,
You
it's
never
a
know.
learning game. It's like
You're right.
anything. I mean, the art thing it's a tough gig. I mean, Brad, you know it. You've been through this, and you're polishing your craft. So every job you take in is great anyway because it's something new to do. Unless you're doing the same crap over and over again, where it's like,
Agreed.
what do you draw? I draw 72 blazers all day, every day.
With a blindfold on because I've done enough. I can just do it now.
Right, that's not helping. I mean, but like and this is another point I want to make. Your work really embodies kind of that pioneer spirit that you have. Kind of getting out there and just going someplace new and starting new. Your stuff always has this kind of fresh look to it, no matter what you do. And
Yep,
I dig
absolutely.
that about it. And that's what kind of drew me to your work at the beginning. We've talked about this. I mean, we've had plenty of phone conversations where I'm going, I love your stuff, man. But it's true. I don't mean it as lip service. And what I like too is something you and I have kind of discussed in the past, where having hands-on, experience working on a car really translates into being able to draw a car.
Big time. I see a lot of artists coming out of like design schools or art schools that seem to have a really good grasp in drawing really avant-garde, weird-looking stuff, but not a great understanding of lighting, contouring, and color. And that's really bizarre to me because, if you're an artist, you should really understand fundamentals. You should, in my opinion, you should be able to draw. You should understand color, shape, lighting, and contour. If you are a designer, which so many of these people go to school for, that should have been all 101.
Exactly. That's your first classes should always be your life drawing classes. That's
Absolutely.
the point of those. And I went through those where and that's why I admire you. You had you didn't go through the formal training that way.
No, I didn't go through, I never went to school for artwork or anything like that. Although I got accepted to a school and I ended up not going.
So when you got accepted, did you draw, because I was asked this question of another guest, did you draw the pirate or the turtle?
I drew neither.
Oh, see, I drew both.
He doesn't get
Oh,
that.
man.
But what I drew them doing is probably what got that whole offer withdrawn. But
It was another job offer that just kind of went sideways.
it took me into a whole separate end of the industry. And by end, I mean end.
Yeah.
Booyah. Yeah. So, but like looking at your stuff, it's funny because you can tell, okay, you've got natural talent and you honed that skill. But like the first time I met you, we talked about this. Something about your work said, okay, the guy gets it. You're not just looking at, a picture and saying, well, this tree or mountain would reflect off of this quarter panel, so I'll draw it just like that. You had that same thought where it's okay, this part arcs up, away from the horizon this way, so the light's going to hit it in this kind of angle. Reflected light is going to play off of this panel in such a different manner. And you know how to tweak that to make it your own. And that's a really cool deal, and that's something that again, I mean, it seems really lacking in a lot of these guys who either, well, we'll just be blunt about it. We talked about earlier, people who trace a picture, and there's a giveaway on that one. And again, tracing has its point.
It does.
But if you're an artist or a designer, the point is to create something fresh and new.
Right. I tend to try to approach artwork from the perspective of showing something familiar in a unique way. And with that, if I'm going to draw something in a slightly weird perspective or just shooting from a different angle, just something that maybe in real life, if we went out and took a photo, maybe we couldn't get that exact thing, but that's the point. If you want a photo, go take a photo. That's,
right.
I'm not here to fill the void of how cool can I make this as photorealistic as possible. In some cases that's necessary. In some cases that's a really, really fun challenge. But as a day-to-day, if I want to do something photorealistic, I'll just go shoot a bunch of photos, to be honest. I'm not going to pay somebody to draw something that I can print out on my printer.
So let me ask you this. Okay, when you mentioned showing something familiar in a unique way, like with my stuff, and I guess just try to illustrate what I'm getting at, with my stuff, I've always tried to draw it because I draw from weird angles because I just remember looking at Hot Wheels cars like that as a kid. I just always saw
that
stuff,
makes sense.
Like you're 50 feet tall looking down on these cars. So yeah, my inner 5-year-old comes out again. But like with you, what was your inspiration to kind of go that route, to not just do the photoreal, like a representational drawing, but instead to go with something that it really more flows into the fine art side of it. And I know you can do the design stuff, but it's your fine art stuff that gets me because it does elicit that response like any good art would. You look at your work and you go, oh, that's bitchin'. And like, God, now I'm going to get all technical and get into how I love the fact you use diagonals a lot, which is great because it's the perfect way to get somebody to respond. But man, what was your inspiration to kind of go that way with it again versus just, drawing a portrait of someone's car as photoreal as possible?
I guess there's probably a few different ways to answer that, and I maybe it's just like the skater person that grew up in the 90s, which is who I am, that just sees what everybody else is doing and goes, okay, that's exactly what I'm not going to do. Because if you want to stand out, the only thing that you're not going to do the same exact thing as everybody else. So, and there's so much in kind of the rendering illustration world that feels very rinse repeat. This guy sort of looks like this guy, sort of looks like this guy. And I understand borrowed influences, but at the same time, if you can't tell who did something by looking at it, that can get a little bit challenging. And I think doing things in a more artistic way gives a lot more energy to something that's usually kind of bland. I know a lot of builders that I work with don't necessarily want to see anything more exciting than just a vehicle. Let's just see the wheels. Let's just see the paint. Let's not really have any fun here. And I get it. Their point is just to take a look at it. But for that reason, when I'm doing paintings, the last thing that I want to do is something that's clean and precise to the point. I want to make a mess. I'm going to do something that's loud, and I want to have fun. So for me, it's a bit of a balance of sometimes I have to spend my time doing this nice clean stuff for the illustrative purpose of the builder, which means the other side of me is just dying to break out some paints and brushes and just sling something and make a total mess. And whether one's more popular than the other, I could care less. Being able to do both is what satisfies me.
Well, and when you do it, your proportions are so neat. That's one thing I've always admired about your work is that your proportions are you can tell that they're well planned. And it's not like you're tracing a photo. It's that you come up with these unique angles, these unique lines that accentuate whatever it is that you're painting to begin with, and the light dances off of it, and you'll make it intentionally the color run. And it's bitchin'. Your paintings captivate me. They really do. So
they're probably my favorite thing to do, honestly. I would probably rather hang out and do paintings more than the rendering stuff, but I think doing both is kind of what keeps me balanced. If you do one thing all the time, then it's no longer as fun as if you do it just some of the time. So working on a bit of both keeps a nice happy balance in there. But in terms of drawing things slightly different than maybe other people do, I have this kind of like personal war with people that just trace everything, and I see these people that get a lot of respect on social media for these really, really nice illustrations, if you want to call them that they do, but they're just so perfect and so, I don't know, they're so perfect they're lifeless. You know what I mean?
Right.
If that makes any sense.
It totally does.
It's like a sticker on a page, and to me that's like kind of telltale of how you arrive at your end result. I can usually look at somebody's artwork and work backwards pretty well, but so for me, drawing stuff in a unique perspective or something with a twist or just a really odd angle is a nice way for me to constantly prove that I'm actually drawing my stuff.
Cool.
So it's kind of one of those, hey, look where Chris screwed this whole thing up. He's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
it. Wrong.
That's that whole Bob Ross thing, It's that weird, those happy accidents shit, dude. My whole career is based on my crap, kind of, being a screw up somewhere. And it's just like, oh, that was garbage. But I looked at it and went, well, that's kind of a defining thing. That one little thing becomes your signature in the style of art you do.
Isn't that funny?
And that's completely messed up. It's totally the opposite of any other career. I mean, if you did that in brain surgery, he's a great neurosurgeon, but he did this thing where every time the breeze blows, the left leg kicks out. You wouldn't get far. Well, maybe, unless you were, building an army of soccer players.
You wouldn't want to describe your brain surgery as artistic.
Sure, I can make you clap like a chicken.
It depends on what part of, what you're working in. I mean, let's not go there. That got kind of weird. So speaking of like a Bob Ross thing and experimenting with things, you do this really cool art and coffee deal. Mm. And I know it gets plenty of coverage on its own, but I'm sure my two dads that are listening to this are going to really enjoy the hell out of this.
Nice.
Tell us a little bit about that. How did that come to be?
As far as okay, so the artwork with the coffee. So what
well, there's art and there's coffee, and I
do
both. It's like, hey, I ingest coffee while I draw art. Dude,
it seems really straightforward, but there's a bigger point to it that I'm trying to figure out how to taper into. So because I didn't go to art school and I don't have any formal training, what I have is a really, really strict practice regimen every single day. So essentially I wake up, have coffee, walking downstairs, and I start drawing pretty much right away. So my drawing with coffee is essentially my warm-up drawing for the day. It's me just kind of getting in the groove, making sure I didn't forget how to draw once I went to sleep the night before, which sometimes I think, might happen. But so for me, it's just this really rigid practice regimen that I have to kind of go, okay, every morning I'm going to draw while I'm having coffee. It's a nice, pleasant experience normally. Not every drawing goes well, I'll be honest. They all of them don't go well. But some of them I'm like, this is pretty cool. I'll just go ahead and break out a fresh sheet and I'll just render this the rest of the way. So I'll take, my 15-minute sketch that was kind of neat and pour a couple more hours onto it and make something cool out of it. And some days that works and some days it doesn't, but it doesn't matter. Every morning I still break out sketch pad and paper and go, I'm just going to sketch something. I'll comb through some reference photos here. So it's really just a part of how I spend my morning practicing before I dive into the work for the day.
Well, I love coming across your warm-ups, because I look at them and I think, because I've done a lot of artwork over the years, but I mean, certainly none at yours or Brian's or Brad's level. I wanted to get there, but I just ran out of time to, follow that dream. But I look at your warm-up stuff, it blows me away. I'm just thinking, shit, that's his warm-up. That would be my finished product if I could get there.
Well, in fairness, it is a finished product. But it's the product of a warm-up.
Fair enough.
I've stopped posting nearly as many of those because I've realized it seems kind of a little bit misplaced. When you see like this really muscular dude at the gym that's like, I'm just warming up, lifting 500 pounds. That doesn't necessarily make people feel good about themselves. So I've kind of dialed that back a little bit because I don't want people to feel like, I just wake up and this amazing drawing just happens because the stars align that day. No, half the time the drawings don't go well, and I go, well, that sucked. Now I'm just going to go ahead and start working on what I'm supposed to, and I don't have a choice about whether that goes well or not. So,
Okay, well, this could be a shameless plug here, because you're gonna have the drawing. Well, no, this you're gonna hear me out here. You could have the drawings that are, you go, they didn't go that well. This one went great. Which coffee works the best for you? See, nobody's asked this question. It's like, okay, he's drinking coffee. There's a lot of coffee out there, dude. Which coffee is your best morning drawing coffee?
You know what? I've never really broken it down to something that precise, because I'm a coffee enthusiast, connoisseur. I love coffee, so I stab all over the math and stuff that I like and stuff that I try. For a long time, I was doing nothing but French press coffee in the morning, which is like an extra fancy, fun way to make coffee. And then I realized that was making me ping way too hard in the middle of the day, and that was making the artwork really, really interesting.
Really shaky. The lines are a little crooked.
It wasn't shaky. The caffeine doesn't quite affect me in that way, but it does make me antsy about not being able to finish something in a couple of hours.
That's what I was going to say. You get that weird, it's an impatient thing.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's bizarre. Yeah, it's a wholly different kind of caffeine rush. It's not, I'm shaky, I'm this and that. It's, you don't get jittery. You get like that weird frustration where this isn't going fast enough.
Exactly.
It has altered my temporal sensation.
This is awesome, because I thought this was just me. It's like, wow, okay, this is actually a thing with artists. You guys just made my day.
We may have just stumbled on something that shows how artists are wired differently. This is kind of
wow,
cool.
I never thought about that. It's like, whoa, I absolutely do that. That's pretty funny.
It is funny.
Thank you, man. I never really thought about that. It's like, okay, this happens to everybody else also. So coffee is good and coffee is bad at the same time.
Yeah, it's a metering thing. What's an okay coffee to have? This time of the day. If I'm going to have coffee more than once a day, am I going to have something lighter or decaf the second part of the day just so that I can go to sleep that night? Coffee doesn't really hit me hard like the way that it used to, but I try to be. I enjoy the taste of coffee. I'm not drinking the coffee because I need some crazy buzz. I love what I do, and I get so much energy from that having much more than just my excitement is probably too much. So I don't want to be over the top with coffee or something crazy like that. I just want a nice, cozy, warm beverage to enjoy while I'm drawing.
I'm going to brew a pot of unrealistic goals is what I'm going to do. That's the plan here.
Coffee, and then I'm going to use that coffee to brew another pot of coffee. What comes out of that?
You're spun out.
I've definitely had days or evenings, getting into 7 p.m. and be like, you know what? I feel like if I just made some more coffee, I could start right now. And I'll do it, every now and then because, I work at home. My schedule is pretty ebb and flow based on what I need to do. So make some coffee. I don't make a pot of coffee. I make a cup of coffee. Break out a big canvas. Throw on a sketch on it, and 50% into this random painting, things are going well. And then in about 2 minutes, it's ruined. It's absolutely ruined. And I'm like, wow. That went sideways so quick. I better take some notes here so I don't do that. The only thing that really bums me out about paintings not going well is wasting material. I guess that's like the shop owner and me going, man, I just went through 3 ounces of paint. And I don't, some of you guys are artists. There is not really any cheap materials that you can buy where you're like, who cares?
No. And if you buy the really cheap stuff, you don't want to use it to begin with. No. So that's a tough gig. And yeah, I mean, I'd always been that way where it's or it's even worse. I still, even when I'm working digital, I still get that way. Not I've wasted pixels, but you start breaking it down. That's 7, that's 7 fractions of a penny in electricity wasted. It's not that bad. But
right.
I still remember the days when you'd get finished with a drawing. You're like, it's done. Here's your rendering. And they come back to, well, okay, can we make it yellow instead? We changed our mind. And you're going, I just blew through 3 red Copic markers to make this thing happen.
Oh, my gosh.
And you're like, oh, dude, it's going to take me, X number of dollars to make that up and redo all this. And you're like, man. Right. So, yeah, I mean, you kind of hold that with you. And you're in that process where you work both digital and analog, for lack of a better word. So yeah, I mean, man, you're feeling that nonstop.
Yeah, and Early on when I was doing just analog traditional artwork, I was really, really kind of a lot against digital. And then I came around and I was like, man, I was such an idiot to be so against something. And I think in all walks, it's so important to be open-minded and just give other stuff a try. And I'm glad that I did, because I really enjoy working digitally now, not one more than the other. I'm just glad that I have the range so that builders can, like you said, go, man, can we change the color? Can we change the wheels? And, not only do we have the technology to do so, but I'm happy to do so. I've got the tools here that even if I do a rendering traditional with markers and airbrush, if I set up and take a great photo and clean it up, I can still modify everything digitally, or we can do the artwork from scratch digitally. I don't care. It's really kind of comes down to what the purpose of the artwork is. These days, if someone says, we're definitely doing this as a SEMA build rendering, I almost always suggest that we do it digitally from the beginning. Exactly. Because I know, okay, it's January. We have a lot of great ideas, but come September, this wheel sponsor didn't come through, or we've got this other color in mind. I'm cool with that. I don't care, but you're going to want to make changes to the artwork and probably not going to want to pay for a brand new original. So let's just nip that in the bud early on and go, listen, here's the medium that gives us all the room for change that you need as this process is unfolding. If I do this drawing and it's traditional, I mail it to you, you might love it as a piece of artwork, but when it comes down to SEMA and you're like, we change the color, we change the wheels, which are like primary aesthetics, that you do really want your rendering to match your build, honestly.
Oh yeah, and it's funny, and especially like in that couple week span during like March, when everybody's going crazy and trying to get those last proposals in.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And you're like, okay, we need to change this. And it's like, or you get somebody right at the beginning where they come at you with this proposal. They're like, we're going to use these wheels. And you're going, that wheel company went out of business like 4 years ago.
Right.
Where did you find
search
these?
this on AOL? What's the deal?
And I mean, it's great though to be able to work between the two, and when you can combine that whole digital thing with the analog part of it, I mean, it's so much fun. Like, I love showing someone that first sketch. Like, okay, this is what we're going to work from. Here's where we're at. And I love, like, when I post those things like on social media, I always get 5 or 10 people who go, "Can I buy that sketch?" And I'm thinking, really? It's on a cheap piece of printer paper that I just whip this thing out, because all I needed was something to start with that I could scan in and then draw.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because, I keep a bunch of those because they're neat.
They are.
And it keeps you in practice because, nothing beats, and I don't care how great of a tablet you have, there's a totally different feeling of that pencil dragging across the paper or that marker than there is those, the piece of plastic on plastic.
Agreed. There's a place for both, but in terms of absolute tactile feel, paper and pen just feels different. And I like that. And you know what? I'm not surprised that people enjoy buying the sketches. And a lot of people that will message me and ask about buying the sketches that I'm posting as well, if it's something that's drawn up in Bic pen or something really like that. And it made no sense to me for a long time, but I think people like kind of the rough rawness of something that's genuine. If it's this perfectly line-weighted sketch, that's really, really cool, and that it does look really, really good, but it doesn't quite have the same type of soul as the person that's trying to figure everything out on that first sheet.
Exactly.
That is true. I'd say that looking at other artists, you want to see a little loose marker line or a pencil line where it's not perfection. You go, well, I can see what he was doing, and he decided he didn't like it, and he covered it up. But it's still got the human factor to it. You go, I like this. I love the fact that it's just kind of loose and stuff is gone, and
exactly,
that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Granted,
I love some of your Bic stuff that you've done. I just think it's phenomenal.
Thank you. It's one of my favorite tools to draw with. It's
got such a cool weight to it. It's just nice. I like it.
It's fun. It's cool, and I think as a drawing, it probably lasts a little bit longer than pencil, but you don't really leave yourself much room for error.
No.
On the topic though of artwork that's got a little bit of human flaw in it, I actually like that, and I always feel like when I'm looking at another artist's artwork, I like something where I can have the sense that a person had their hand in it. Even digitally, you can get a sense from it. part of the issue with some of the artists nowadays is they are confusing inexperience or an actual flaw for something that could be charming. So there's something where you go, oh man, it's kind of neat that they ran the pen off the edge this way and it kind of has this nice little flow to it, versus the guy that dropped his pen in the middle of it and they have to go, I'm human. It's like, well, maybe don't let your cat run around while you're sipping coffee and and this won't look haphazard. Instead, so there's kind of an issue there. I kind of have that gripe a little bit with pinstripers these days as well. And people that, just coming up, that pinstriping is something that's totally done by hand. It's what makes it genuine, and you want to do as nice a job as possible. But the idea that because it's hand done means that it's going to be imperfect and you just need to live with it, that's BS. You should be trying to make it as nice as you can, and the human imperfection should be on that fringe.
That's a hell of a point. I mean, yeah, there's a fine line between like laziness and sloppiness.
Absolutely.
And the personality of it.
I agree, and I think that means people are letting their standards slip, which to me feels a little bit unfair because I've worked really hard to do whatever type of artwork it is I'm doing. I've worked hard to make it look nice. So for somebody to come by and haphazardly do something and go, yeah, whatever, it's just hand done, so who cares? Man, all my stuff's hand done, and I want it to be as nice as possible.
Right. Now, it's funny you said that right there. When we were down doing the stuff at Disneyland, doing the pinstriping down there at Cars Land.
Oh man, nice.
It was pretty cool. Well, I got to do a bunch of T-shirt designs, and they wanted
nice.
some pinstriping stuff. So I can do like you and Brian. I can do stuff digitally or analog. I can go either way with it.
Nice.
So I threw all my sketches together. I just drew them all up. Gave them vector stuff. Because I knew there were going to be changes. Like, okay, they're going to probably want a couple changes. Oh, I gave me more than a couple. So I did everything in color instead of a pencil thing going, hey, could you color it in? Now it just turns into this nightmare going, I'm going to make it easy on myself to start with and just give them digital renderings. So I drew the stuff all up and they, after 47 changes, from the original 2, okay, we're okay. We're going to okay, all right, fine. Well, now they want me to actually paint this on a panel so they can shoot a photo of it, because they want it to have the human element.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Oh, challenge accepted. Now I'm pissed. Like, wait a minute, you don't want to use the digital thing? Oh, no, they want it pinstriped. That way, if there's any imperfections. Oh,
that's
okay.
Awesome.
So what I gave them, I gave it my best. I mean, if there was a point, it came to the exact same point of what I drew digitally. So, I mean, I put the extra, because I wanted them to look at that going, there's no difference between the digital drawing and the actual, pinstriping version.
Yeah, that's a compliment.
And they're going, well, is that a painting? Yeah, I painted it. Well, it's like, this is funny because it wasn't digital. They wanted to have something that had it was had obviously flaws in it. Well, I didn't want to have flaws in it. I wanted it to get as close as I could to the digital version. So
they were expecting something more loose, something a little more personality then.
Well, just like what Chris was just saying, you give it that extra deal. You don't want it to. There's no excuse for messing it all up. Make it as nice as you can possibly make it. There's no reason to, do a half-assed job. That's not what you're supposed to.
And for many reasons, if somebody says, "Hey, can you make this look a little crappier?" What the hell? Why would you do that?
Can I? Challenge accepted. Oh, I mean, wait, that's not the right attitude.
But, yeah. And at that point, if your name is associated with a thing and people are like, oh, well, I thought you did better than this, you're going to go, do you really going to sit there and explain every single time? Yeah, Disney wanted me to do a crappier job. Really? You're not going to have that opportunity with everybody that's coming to buy a T-shirt.
No, that's what makes it a great story. So let me ask you,
do crap any more than you want it, or Brian. I mean, that's what we do. You don't want something leaving that you're not proud of. It doesn't matter who it's for or what it is, even if it's some, half-assed job you have to get blasted out by tomorrow morning, you're going to still give it your best because that's what they want you to do. They want your best.
You'll do the best you can within the confines of the time and tools that you have.
Well, let me ask you then. Now, this brings up a really good point. Okay, you're doing your best. This is, I'm the same way. I mean, I put everything I've got into everything I do just because the name's attached to it. Now, and working so hard to make your own unique style, and we'll get into people copying that in a minute, but because that's the elephant in the room all the time. But as far as making your name and doing your thing, do you still get the people who come to you and say, hey, can you draw this, but in this style?
I used to get that a little bit more early on, or maybe as early as a few years ago. And I would never. It doesn't make sense to me. And if I was going to commission somebody to pinstripe something or draw something in a certain style, the obvious choice is just to go to that person.
Exactly.
So I don't really understand why people have asked that, but it does happen every now and then. Can you do this in this dude's style? Or here's some reference photos of some artwork that I like. All right, but you're coming to me, the artist. I'm not looking for ideas on how to do my artwork. That's not what I'm here for.
Or my favorite is always, and not to just take it, it's always, hey, if you look at your work, I would never come to you and say, hey, can you draw a Ratfink car for me?
And people do ask me to do that, and it gets harder to be nice because it's not my thing.
It's not your thing, or because it's so dated? 20 years ago would have been fine.
It's a combination, though. That's,
I guess I'm young enough that it's not even it never occurred to me that would be cool. And I'm not from California, so it was never my thing. So it's just I'm not into it. So at this point, it's pretty easy.
That's because you were 6 when it was cool, dude.
That's probably.
And that was the second time around. It was big back in the 60s, So.
Wow. Yeah, nothing against anybody that does it. It's just not my thing. We all have things that we can kind of specialize in, but there are examples of things that people ask me to do, like cartoons or Ratfinky stuff, where I'm like, listen, if I were to do this, I'm not going to charge you any less than I would a painting or an illustration. Do you really want to spend $1,000 for me to draw you this green Mickey Mouse? I doubt it. I don't know.
and that's a tough thing for people to understand, and I think it's important to talk about too, from the artist point of view, to educate people how this works. And time is still time. I love when somebody comes to me and says, well, can you draw this for me? But don't do one of your really cool over-the-top renderings. Well, no, there's nothing over the top. That's my benchmark. Right. It's what I go for every time.
Go a little more half-assed, right? Just a little more half-assed.
Yeah, a little.
Right,
can you quarter ass it?
Yeah.
It's funny when I have people if I'm giving somebody an estimate on doing artwork and they're like, if you could dial it back, could you do it for a little bit less or whatever? And sometimes in the past I've tried to work with people, and what's really funny is that I go, okay, I'm gonna help this person out. This is a pretty straightforward ordeal. I can get through this. Somehow I managed to spend twice as much time as I would on a normal whatever piece, and then and it's probably one of the better things that I've done, that month or something. I'm like, every single time this seems to happen. And in contrast, somebody be like, I just want you to do one of those renderings like you do with coffee. Something that I smash out in 2 or 3 hours is not what I consider professional quality rendering artwork. And I can't bring myself to do that for somebody that's spending money. If I'm going to do something quick, it's going to be for me. And if somebody wants to buy that, that's cool. But for someone to be like, I want an illustration of my vehicle, I'm going to sit down and try to do the best job I can. I'm not going to be like, how cool can I do this in 3 hours?
Yeah.
That makes it for a tough gig. And is name recognition a big thing for you, or are you just more into it for the passion of the art? And that's a weird, I know it's a strange thing to ask you being in the business.
That is an interesting question. I've never thought of it as a name recognition thing. So I certainly don't come at it from that point of view. Yeah, some notoriety in doing stuff is a lot of fun. I think there's more recognition of other types of artwork that I do that aren't design build renderings. I'd say it's that avenue of artwork for me specifically is probably the one that I have the least credit in for whatever reason. So there's other stuff that I do that is got way more notoriety, I think, that I absolutely, if I did it, I want to make sure my name is on it.
Right on it. And a lot of your stuff, obviously, I mean, you don't even need to sign your name to some of your stuff, especially your Sharpie stuff, man.
Yeah, that's the best example of if I did it, I want everyone to know that I did it.
I love the Sharpie stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, where did that come from? I mean, now I wonder what you were like as a kid. Is there a lot of pissed off neighbors in your own where you grew up? Or
But a lot of really cool looking street signs.
Yeah.
Used to draw on their cards with charcoal briquettes.
State of Maryland's really glad you're gone.
Probably. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that. Like I said, I was a skater in the 90s, and we grew up in the suburbs outside of DC. And graffiti is a crime, as is skateboarding. It's illegal there. I don't know if they've changed it since. Pretty much everything that you could do.
It's that way everywhere.
Yeah, everything that you could do that's fun and creative is against the law. So when I was growing up, you didn't sign your name to your artwork that you put on the wall. But nowadays things are a little bit different. But in any case, the way that the Sharpie thing started was such a fun story. So when we were living in Maryland still, a couple years before we moved to California, I was flown out to Northern California to do with my cousin's car in Ukiah, which is way north, kind of middle of nowhere, super laid back.
It is in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing there.
It's nothing there, but it's so pretty. It's so nice. I love it up there, if not for the fact that there is nothing up there. So I flew out there to paint his car, because I was painting cars at the time, and he said, I want to do something cool on, I think he had a 94 Eldorado. And so he thought, I definitely want to do some like candy and flake and stuff. And he was set up out of an old Sherwin-Williams paint distribution place. He was renting it out and living in it, essentially. And him and all his friends were living in it as well. And I won't get into the details about what they were using the facility for. That's none of your business. But in any case, so the storefront, which was all like glass on this corner area, was all like covered in cardboard, and they had taped it up so that everybody could sleep at night instead of looking at pretty colors and stuff. So everybody had their own couch to sleep on. There was probably a dozen people like sleep living there. It was very strange, but I could use the change of scenery at the time. Anyways, the dude man that owns his car is totally covered in tattoos. And we were talking about what he wanted to do artwork wise or paint wise on his car. And I thought, you know what? He's covered in tattoos. What if we do tattoos on the car that were like the tattoos on his body, and maybe some more things that were about him? So he was like, that sounds interesting and weird. And at the time, there was one prominent Sharpie car done. It was a Lamborghini done by Jonas Serwinski in Miami. And this was like 10 years ago is how long it's been. And so I was able to pull it up as an example and just kind of go, this type of medium, not exactly this style, but I'll probably borrow from this a little bit. But in some of these areas, I want to replicate the tattoos that you have on your body, as well as let's talk about a handful of other cool things that we can incorporate. So he was cool with that. Just as an idea, I said, I'll walk over to the local Walmart and buy a pack of Sharpies, and I'll just do an area of the hood, and you can decide if you like it or hate it, and we can come up with a different idea. So I did a section of the hood, and he thought it was really, really cool. So he said, go ahead, just do the whole thing, have at it. So I spent probably like 10 or 12 days there doing the artwork on the car. And the hood on that particular car has the most prominent artwork on it. So it's got like a famous Stars and Straps logo, a big Cadillac logo, V8s were the pistons, music notes, snare drums, more stuff that was about him. And more the rest of the artwork on the car is a bit more tribal and a bit more flowy, a bit more graphic, which was fun. And that was the first one that I ever did, and it was a paying gig, which is surprising to do something that strange and not to have to do it for free, which was really, really cool. And so that was how I did the first one. And I've done a lot. I've done 17 marker art vehicles all over the world. There's nobody that has done as many as I have, literally.
I saw you. I don't know. Was it at SEMA or the Grand National? Did you do one at SEMA or the Grand National?
I did. I've done artwork live at SEMA. I did one at Grand National Roadster Show, I think 2 years ago in the main hall. It was an Econoline van.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I walked up and talked to you for about 10 seconds. I didn't want to bother you. It's like, I'm going to leave this guy alone. But, I didn't know you. You didn't know me. It's like, holy shit. Who is this guy?
Everybody's a stranger at first.
I was doing a Sharpie in me because I had heard about your stuff, but I hadn't seen it. So I'm watching you going, all right, this guy's nuts. I like him. I remember. This is nuts. Taking a Sharpie. I mean, that's a whole different media here to, do it with, because I've been a paint guy forever. So watching you do what you were doing was kind of mind boggling. But yes, I really like what you do. That's quite amazing.
It's a blast, and when I'm explaining, I like doing the artwork live at events because in the past, when we just had reveals on cars, people just think that it's a wrap. So it's kind of like having the human flaw in the artwork. When you can see a person doing the artwork, it kind of validates the process. So if you see something that's done in Sharpie marker, you just kind of go, oh, that's neat. Oh, it says it was done with Sharpies. That's weird. But to see it done, especially an entire vehicle over the course of a couple days, that's freaking cool.
Yeah, well, that was cool. Yeah. So I watched you for a little while and then left because you had a bunch of people standing around, and I know what that's like, and I wasn't going to bother you. I'd let you do what you got to do there, but I just want to tell you that I was blown away. It was pretty freaking awesome.
I don't know if you were there the first day or the second day because I had 2 days to do the artwork on that one. There was a handful of cameras that were set up around me because they were shooting a time lapse for Jay Leno's garage.
Oh, cool!
Wow. When Alex and I would go, we'd usually go on Saturday. So whatever day you started, I don't know. It was on a Saturday we were down there.
Yeah. I don't remember. That was a lot of Sharpie cars ago. I'll be honest.
That was a lot of Sharpies.
Well, dude.
Not nearly as many as you might think.
What do you put anything over them, or it fades out and that's the end of it, or what do you
clear coat it? You're done.
So, well, how does it do as far as the fading thing goes, with clear over it compared to, I mean, obviously it's going to rub off if you don't put anything on it, but does the sun beat it up? How does it hold up with, just with the UV?
There's a lot of variables to that answer because even ink, let's say a Sharpie marker, there's several different versions of a Sharpie. And so we think of a run-of-the-mill Sharpie, usually it's a dye-based ink, and the industrial Sharpie has a different carrier component than, let's say, a standard Sharpie. And there's some fancy chemistry in there, but the short answer is the way to negate all those problems is to use paint markers.
Oh, okay. Well, all right, that makes sense.
I would also imagine that your typical Sharpie would tend to possibly run even if you tried to clear coat it.
Yeah, the earlier on the Sharpie cars that probably the first 4 or 5 that I did were actually done with Sharpies. They were done with industrial strength Sharpies, which again is a different chemical carrier than standard Sharpies. So their likelihood to interact with clear coat is not that high. But in all those cars, I clear coated as well. Because I have a background in painting cars, it was really easy for me to go, okay, the obvious thing here to do is to take it easy on the first couple of coats. Let's not over wet it because, you can saturate the ink. The Sharpie ink, if you done on a smooth surface, like most inks, are, in the paint world, what's called reversible. So the carrier solvent can reverse it. So if Sharpie's main carrier is xylene, and there's xylene in the reducer in your urethane clear, 1, leave out the reducer, and 2, don't pile it on.
Yeah.
Makes sense. You sneak up on it.
Yeah. Just take it easy. It's easy to be like, let's slick this thing out. But, once you've got a weekend of artwork, that's not really a risk you want to take. And it's not a cheap thing to have done once, let alone twice. Which in that case, almost every single Sharpie vehicle I've done, almost every single one, not all of them, I was the person to put the clear coat on just to make sure that the process went smoothly. With the nature of using paint markers, which is usually acrylic or oil-based, anybody can clear it. You won't have any problems at all.
Nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for that one.
Take to do a car.
It's kind of like everything I do. I like to work fast. I like to be really, really efficient. So, and I've gotten to do some big marker art jobs for big companies like Toyota, Fiat, and Sharpie themselves, actually. And usually in those cases, they'll call me 2 weeks before they need something done, and the window to do the entire car is 2 or 3 days.
Oh, wow. Rider's cramp.
Carpal tunnel, everything else.
I love it. Oh, it's so much fun. And
you're putting an ad in the local Craigslist for needed interns to fill in lines.
Yeah, line fillers.
I've tried to have people help me in the past, and it was like, I got this. It's all good. Yeah. And the technique that I use doesn't really require a lot of back and forth, just because I've done so many. And it's kind of fun going through the interview process with some of these bigger companies where they're like, hey, we're putting feelers out to have this job done. And, it's you and maybe 2 other artists that we're talking about doing this. And the cool thing for me is I've got a huge portfolio of examples of this stuff, not only on cars, motorcycles, skateboards, helmets, panels. I've done this a bazillion times. And it's really, because it's what I do for a living, it's easy for me to be like, okay, you need me there tomorrow. I can get on a plane today, which makes me really, really accessible. And then for them to be like, we only have a couple days to do this. I'm like, sweet, just keep the lights on. I don't care. 2 days that's fine. You know, where there are other artists that do Sharpie vehicles. Certainly you can look them up and find them on Google, but you will not find somebody that's going through them as fast as I am. There's no way.
Damn.
That's awesome.
Is that coffee?
I don't drink coffee when I do those, actually.
Oh, no.
Yeah. No, on days when I'm doing Sharpie cards, I just drink water. I don't even want to have lunch. I don't want to stop working. I just want to drink water.
Wow.
You're giving up a lot of good sponsorship opportunities here. I was going to try to get, we're going to put this in front of someone and say, hey, Folgers, this is your shot.
Yeah. This is what artwork looks like on Folgers. This is what it looks like on Starbucks.
This would be great. We have to change your nickname. Then you could be like, you can't be Pinstripe Chris anymore.
Coffee and crayons.
Coffee and crayons, yeah. Here's something really funny. One of the Sharpie cards that I did 2 years ago was for Fiat. They had a brand new 124 Spider. I had to fly to Brooklyn, New York to do the car because they had a studio set up specifically to do it. We had 2 days to really do all the filming, and it was a full film production. It was really expensive to do the work. And so it was for the I want to say it was the Summer Olympics or the Winter Olympics of that year. So the concept was to write all 100 and no, it wasn't 100. It was like 215 different countries, something like that. Write all the country names all over the car, and then for half of them, draw the flag using only black, white, light gray, and medium gray in 2 days.
And purely by memory.
Oh man, thank God I didn't have to do that. They originally wanted that. They were like, do you think you could just look at a picture and replicate it? And I said, yeah, maybe if it was like a few, but 200 and something, I don't think I'm going to be able to memorize in a couple of days.
Hey,
so
this Becca Stanley flag doesn't have a penis on it. It does now.
So that was
They got liberated.
No more in that flag, that's for sure. What was interesting about that, kind of in the same vein, was there was somebody going through the list of countries that I was doing in each set going, okay, we can't put these two countries next to each other. We can't put these two countries next to the same panel because of political differences or whatever the deal is. So that was really interesting. But that was probably the most specific thing where they're like, we have to achieve this, versus bringing me in to go do what you think is going to look cool on this car, which is a bit simpler than making sure you get the spelling right on 200 countries, as well as the flag done in monochromatic in like 60 seconds per flag.
Did they give you a shot? Not to sound stupid here, but as well as me as an artist, like somebody gives me an idea. This is kind of what I want to do. I get a little time to throw it around in my brain. Not that I'm taking, quick sketches or whatever. It's just my brain can kind of, So when you're flying back there, did you already know what you were going to do? So you were bouncing around in your head, kind of a game plan before you got there, or they didn't tell you until you got there?
A little bit of both, because I have a method that I work on, stuff like that. The production team already said we have this concept of doing the words and the flags somehow on this car within this frame of time. What do you think is possible? So what I did here before I even left is I did some 100% true to form concepts where I broke out some panels, sprayed them down with white enamel, and I did the flags exactly and the lettering the exact way that I would propose. I even shot a video time lapse of it so they had an idea of what my body position was going to be like when I was drawing, because they were shooting camera on the whole thing. I figure if I can give them as much information as possible, it'll help my chances of actually getting the job. And then also prep the production team a lot. So they had a lot to work on or go from working forward, knowing what my process was going to be like. And at the same time, sort of a general idea of the direction of artwork. It was a lot of people had to sign off on it, so I had to be pretty true to form in that. But generally, also in those types of things, I don't think too far ahead. I wait until I get to the situation with the vehicle, with the materials, with everything set up, and make the most crucial decisions then. Because it's like like a build rendering, I could draw anything that I think might be cool. But in reality, when the builder gets in there and they start cutting metal to try to figure out what's realistic, they don't need to look at the artwork and go, oh man, we have to do this because of this. They're going to cut it up and do what they think makes sense. And I approach the marker artwork the same way. Something conceptually will get me to the point of where I've got the job. And then once I arrive on location, the real logistics kind of take over.
I would love to see this whole thing like storyboarded out. Okay, guys, at minute 16, let's see, 16:46, 12, it's going to be like this, and there's an automatic for it.
That's funny.
It'd be well played.
Yeah, the idea that there's a plan is kind of a funny thing. I've been asked a lot in that type of artwork. They say, people ask, what do you do when you make a mistake? And well, obviously the goal is not to mistake, but the material isn't not forgiving enough for you to erase. You have to get everything on the first try. There is no room for error. But should you come up with this weird squiggle or line that just isn't flowing to the next one, take that, replicate it 12 more times, and now it's a pattern. It's no longer a
Here's where I screwed up 12 times in a row. Check this out.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
you didn't screw up 12 times just like that.
The other side to that is many of these vehicles that I've done are done live, or they're filmed, or they're like at the International Auto Show. I'm doing one car for Toyota, or Fiat, which is being filmed by a crew of 20 people. The other thing that lets people know that you've made a mistake is when you freak out and start throwing things and swear. Kicking stuff. So keeping your composure, not making eye contact with anybody, and just kind of carrying on lets everybody know that everything's just fine.
Yeah.
Even when it's not.
Even when it's not. Keep your composure. That's why I'm doing coffee.
Hey, I have to ask a question to a car illustrator. Do you have a secret car crush of a car that you love, but you're afraid to tell anybody else that you love it?
That's an interesting one. There's a lot of cars that I like, and I own a bunch of cars. And I think even a handful of the ones that I own, there's plenty of people who are like, those are junk, those are crap. Why would you want to own those?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm not afraid to tell people I used to own a Fiero, an 86 GT, and I freaking loved it. They were so much fun, especially once you hacksaw the catalytic converter off. Then they sound right.
As right as a 6 can sound.
Yeah, I think.
What are they, 2.8s?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're good little cars, man.
Yeah, dude, that car is a blast. It's a small little go-kart. It's not fast, but once you get the sound right, you feel fast.
Made the full 16 horsepower once you saw the catalytic converter.
I think it was like 180 horsepower overall. Which for that little, plastic car wasn't bad. Yeah, but, most people pretty much hate them. I also own 2 Corvairs. I got a 65 and a 66.
Dude.
I like those cars.
That's cool.
Love those or hate them, and I love them. They're so much fun. Really, really underrated, except amongst Corvair enthusiasts, which, is like being a Saab enthusiast, basically.
Well, especially the second generation Corvairs. Those things didn't get the love that I think they should have got.
Oh, I totally.
They sorted out a lot of stuff on those. They were really cool cars.
So the 65 is the first year of the second generation. They went to 69. I'm a bit of a Corvair aficionado because I have one as a daily driver.
What kind of coffee did you drink in yours? Sorry.
In my Corvair?
Air-cooled coffee.
The 65 is the first year of the second generation, which means it has fully independent suspension all the way around, replacing the swing axle. They out-handled the Corvettes. I'm telling you, they're an amazing handling car. Now, they're down on power, being what I have is a Monza, which is a 110, so 110 horsepower, twin carb, a flat 6, which is fun, but the power glide makes it pretty much useless. So having a 4-speed is a lot better, but both of mine are power glides, which is a drag. But it doesn't make me like the car any less. The shape is so cool because it's rear engine and the transaxle is all the way in the back. The floor is flat, so there's a ton of legroom in a 2-door car. There's no pillars, so you roll the windows down and you have just total visibility everywhere. It's just a unique car that people either know what it is or they don't.
Yeah, great looking dash. I mean, it's got a lot of neat features to it.
It's a weird one. It's if you've got the Power Glide version, it actually doesn't have a park. You just put it in neutral and you pull up the parking lever.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah, so it actually doesn't have a park in its little gear shift, and the gear shift is up on the dash next to the steering wheel, which is really weird. And I've also, one of the ones that I've got that half the people hate and half the people like, I've got a Porsche 996. And that's the first generation of the water-cooled Porsche that proper Porsche people really hate. But I think if you own one, you'd feel differently. I freaking love mine. It's one of my favorite cars I've ever bought and own. But I guess purists are angry about it because it does this thing or looks this other way. But I don't know. It's hard to be mad in a car like that. You can be mad because you can't afford one, I guess.
So when did the 996s come out? I mean, were they like a mid-90s car?
1999.
99. Okay.
So for me, it was one of the sports cars that was available, or still available, I guess I should say, when I was in high school. So the 996 generation ran until 2005, 6, something like that, which is about when I graduated high school. So they were still one of the cool cars to have as far as Porsches. So I always really liked them, and I enjoyed them, and I really enjoy the one that I have.
Are they relatively reliable? Do they require much maintenance?
That's kind of a tricky answer.
Okay, you don't need to answer that one.
The can of worms.
It's not as bad as it sounds. Saying something like that. I actually just took mine in for service to get an oil change, and of course spent almost $1,000 on a couple of odds and ends. I took my car to the place that I bought it from, and I love them. They take good care of me. They're an indie Porsche place, so I knew I was going to pay more for the service, but they're mom and pop shop, so they're awesome and I love them. But the thing that gets pricey about cars like that is like tires, brakes, and clutch. So every car's got those things, but I think on the 996 the rears are like 18s that are like 265s wide, and they're staggered tires, so you can't rotate them, and the clutch requires the engine to come out. So it's just kind of is what it is.
And the holy water that's $200 a gallon.
Of course.
A liter.
It's the more expensive of the cars that we have to maintain and keep on the road, but it keeps the joy at 100% all the time. It's worth it.
That's awesome.
Oh, I was just saying we've got to have Chris back because he's got so much to tell.
I have stories for days, man.
Hell yes.
There's parts that we haven't even got to yet.
We've got a lot of questions for you.
I'm blown away, dude. I really am. You blew me away. It's like, holy crap, this guy's done some cool stuff. This is great.
Right on. Well, thank you. I always hope, like, when I'm chatting that I don't sound like crazy pretentious. I'm just proud that I'm just proud, man.
No, and let me ask you now, because this is super important to me, you being an artist. What do you, if you have anything out there, where can people find your work? What would you like to promote? Heck, man, if you're one of these guys who are like, go to my Patreon and you get this, by all means, lay all that out, and we're not going to be shy about putting that out there. So,
right on, I appreciate it. Well, our website is pinstripechris.com. That's where I kind of usually have a fairly up-to-date gallery of the stuff that I've worked on recently, from paintings to illustrations, as well as there's a store on the website for prints and some originals. And I share new artwork just about every day on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, I'm Pinstripe_Chris, and on Facebook, Chris Dunlop or Pinstripe Chris. So almost every day I'm sharing new artwork, which is cool. That means there's always some variety and something new to check out and fun.
Outstanding.
Well, thank you again, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. It's been a blast.
We'd love to have you back.
We've enjoyed it.
There's so much more I think I could get into.
So, man, we know where to contact you at. We'll get all that stuff up on the website as well. That'll be in the show notes. For our two listeners. Well, one that can read. We have a 50% literacy rate. It's awesome.
Amongst your fans and followers, or America?
Amongst our fans and followers, but it puts us at 2/3 of the national average, so we're doing all right.
Say we're still beating California.
Well, if you take away one of Brian's dads, it narrows it way down.
Depends on which one you take out of the equation. That's a whole different story. And now I'm going to get the phone call again after this episode goes live. What's the thing with the two dads?
Your other dad wants to know.
they battling for favorite? What's the deal?
Yeah.
One of these days they'll both find each other. It'll be great.
They don't know about each other? Jeez. That seems weird.
It's complicated.
Sounds that way.
Well, Chris, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank
Yes,
you,
dude.
guys. It was a
Thank you
blast.
very much.
Yeah. Great time.
Dude, outstanding.
I hope this
time.
is the #1 rating podcast of all time. Let's just hope. Cross fingers.
Well, cool, man. We'll definitely do this again, and
Cool.
thanks again to our guest, and thank you for listening. As always, I'm Brian.
I'm still Brad.
I'm Alex.
I'm Eric.
And we'll catch you next time. Thanks again. Thanks again for listening, and be sure to keep up with us Gearheads over on our website at www.round6pod.com. And if you'd like to, we invite you to follow along with us over on Facebook, Instagram, and be sure to check out all of our latest videos on youtube.com.